Now it's on.
Well, there was a time we borrowed that airplane. It's another Manny story. If you haven't been here before, there's this, never mind. Somebody named Manny, but, can you hear me? And
You have competition.
Okay.
If you're yelling at the door,
All right. The email came out of nowhere. It was from Drew. Manny had not seen or heard from him in 40 years. They'd been friends, good friends, and running buddies through 3 years in high school. Of all her friends, Drew was the one who stood out in her memory. He was the one who dared to do things no teenager from a respectable Southern family would consider. They were not bad things, only mischievous and a little dangerous. It might have been because his mother was terminally ill, and his father, okay. And his father had little time for him, or maybe it was just the way he was made. He had the highest IQ ever measured in the town, but his overactive curiosity did cause a problem from time to time. Like the time he decided to check out the rowdy honky-tonks along the river when he was only 15, or the time he blew off the end of his pointer finger while trying to light firecrackers under a tin can. Remember the night we went flying? They were the only words in the email, but the memory of that day came flooding back. The early summer morning had dawned warm and fresh. Manny woke to the sound of Miss Catherine vacuuming her house as she did every morning at 7 o'clock. Mr. Gordon had replaced the entire houseful of carpet more than once, since Miss Catherine's incessant vacuuming sucked out all the fibers about every 3 years. It was the familiar morning sound in the family house, and even though the sound was annoying, Manny would have missed it were it not there. After her parents left for work, somebody shoot that car. It's a theme song, all right. After her parents left for work, Manny began her day as a teenager on summer break by cleaning the kitchen and dusting all the wood surfaces in the house, which must be done every single day, just as the carpet must be vacuumed every day. Why? Nobody but Miss Catherine knew that those were the rules. After the cleaning was completed, Manny met her friends at the pool for a day of swimming and sunbathing in Fritos. About mid-afternoon on that clear June day, Drew stopped by the pool. He sat with their group of friends on the edge of the pool, swinging his legs in the cool water until everyone except he and Manny had gone into the pool for a swim. After just a moment, Drew turned to Manny with a mischievous grin on his face and said, "You know that creature everybody's talking about being sighted in Summertown?" Manny nodded, having heard the stories about a large, hairy, human-like creature that had frightened one young man so badly he wet himself. "Well, how about we take the plane up tonight and look for it?" Manny's eyes lit up, and before her brain could think, her mouth said, "Sure." Drew's eyes held the same light, and they grinned at each other with thoughts of a great adventure. That night, just at dusk, Manny asked to borrow the family car and drove straight to the airport where Drew was waiting, already having signed out the plane on his father's account. Drew had celebrated in a single-engine Cessna, but he had no pilot's license and certainly no instrument rating. Thus they had agreed Manny would park her car at the north end of the airport, then wait for Drew to taxi down the runway. When the Cessna approached, she jumped the fence, ran through the ditch, scrambled through the brush to the runway, and climbed into the passenger seat with a great big smile on her face as if this was the way everyone was flying. Manny had flown with her father many times, so when Drew checked the controls, pulled back on the throttle, and headed down the runway, she felt perfectly comfortable. Had Manny been more experienced, she might have realized that her absolute trust in people was her major weakness. We know that. But on this night, her faith in her friend was worthy. As the plane left the ground, she felt that free, escaping, exhilarating feeling she loved so much. There was a whole world below her, but up there, everything was different. The noisy little Cessna could dip, climb, turn, whatever the pilot wanted it to do. They buzzed the homes of a friend or two, then headed for Summertown, 10 miles away. They flew over the area near the river where the creature had reportedly been sighted, and and where people were gathered even as darkness fell, but saw nothing unusual below, and no movement on the ground resembling a Bigfoot. The light from the full moon glinted off its dark water as the river twisted below them, turning back on itself in places, then continuing to wander through the forests and fields. The trees, so prevalent in Tennessee, looked like rocky florets lining the river and covering the bottomland for miles. The yellow-white light above them made the world visible below, though it resembled a black and white movie with a twist. A feeling of freedom and lightness captured them both as they talked and laughed while the plane took them anywhere they wanted to go. They climbed higher as they flew over their town. There below was the drive-in, where their friends were ordering burgers and fries, talking, and playing Hang On Slippy on the car 8-track system. The commercial buildings looked like cardboard boxes with tiny lighted signs on the front. The streets like pencil marks between the buildings and houses, and the cars like small bugs moving on the pencil marks. Manny wondered if anyone knew that on that night, 2 teenagers were flying illegally by the light of the full moon. After about an hour, Drew turned the plane toward the airport. Landing was a bit bumpy but successful. Manny ducked down in her seat as Drew taxied, then climbed out of the passenger door and headed for her car as Drew placed the chocks under the wheels. She went home to her mother's incessant cleaning and her father's nightly private time in his gun room. She finished her homework, chose her outfit for school the next morning, then crawled into bed, a little grin stuck on her face. As far as Manny knew, neither of them ever told anyone about their adventure, but always held a memory. 40-something years later, as Manny looked at the email, she thought, "Yes, Drew, I remember the night we went flying."